colonialism and occupation while still resisting and raising families. This will be followed by an open discussion on connecting these experiences with the experience of women across the African continent and how we can mobilize and build together a gender-based solidarity movement that we can tap into as individuals or organizations. On our panel, we have today Abir Barakat from Gaza. We have Tamam Al-Karou from Jerusalem. We have a video clip from Samiha Hurain from the village of Atuwani in the South Hebron Hills of Masafariyata. We have Farhan Farah, who is a member of the Human Rights Defenders Association. We have Abir Sayadi, an archaeologist from Jerusalem. We have as well Sahar Francis, who is from Fusatu in Northern Galilee and works for Adamir. So I want to call on our first panelist, Abir Barakat, who, as you all know, is a well-known activist. She is a PhD candidate at the University Putra, Malaysia in the English language. She's also a senior lecturer and researcher in the Palestinian struggle. She published and co-authored a number of research articles about the Palestinian struggle and its representation in the media. Abir is also an activist who works towards enabling and empowering Palestinian women through training, education, and psychological support. Over to you, Comrade Abir.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and good afternoon, good evening, assalamu alaikum, good morning, wherever you are, because we are from different time zones. Somebody else might be watching us from Malaysia. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm so honored to have you here. Thank you for commemorating the Nakba. Thank you for standing with us in your activities. Words of appreciation cannot be enough for you. Yes, Firuza?
Yes, Comrade Abir, you can go ahead.
All right. As we today commemorating the 75th Nakba, actually, such a day is a day that reminds us of the horrible atrocities and massacres that the Israelis have perpetrated in the villages and towns of the historic lands of Palestine. I remember these days very clear from my grandmother's stories that became very clear in my mind. Even when I watched the series that documented the Nakba, that is called At-Taghrib al-Falastiniya, or the Palestine exile, it actually made me feel that I'm living with the stories of my grandmother. The Taghriba, or the characters in that series, made me feel that my grandmother is one of the mothers over there. My father is one of them. These stories are vivid in my mind. And even I urge you to watch the newly movie about the Palestinian Nakba called Farha. I hope if you can provide the link for that on Netflix. Farha is a true story of what happened during that time, where a teenager has to witness the atrocities of the military or the paramilitary groups, the Haganah and the Eastern and Haganah and Ergon, of how they killed the Palestinian villagers. Watching that movie is actually, whenever you see it, you feel the pain in your heart. You can immediately cry, whether you are a Palestinian or from whatever nationality you are, because you can actually see how hard it was for someone to witness the killing with cold blood, the killing of the mothers, the fathers, the children, and even a newly born child. And this is exactly what my grandmother was telling me. My grandmother, by the way, or my grandparents in general, they were living in the city of Jaffa. My grandfather was a merchant who is originally from Gaza, but some of his family, part of the family, Barakat family, some of them are living in Gaza. The others were living in Jaffa. And they have lands over there. They are merchants. So they were moving freely in the whole of Palestine. At that time, they were rich. They had orchards of oranges. They were living in a house that looks like a palace. This is what my grandmother told me. And my father was only 1 year old at that time. My grandmother had 4 children. So they were living in peace. They even have neighbors, Jewish neighbors, who were living in peace with them. My grandmother used to tell me how good they were with each other. Some of them were even Arabs. And they used to see those Jews coming from Europe who were seeking refuge in the land of Palestine after what happened in World War II and the Holocaust. So it was normal for them. The people were very naive. I can tell you, they weren't seeing this kind of pattern from the Jewish migrant at that time, and they were actually receiving them with love and help. My grandmother was living in peace, and she was taking care of her children. Her husband used to leave for sometimes travel for 6 months, leaving her in the Levant area, and she never felt unsafe until the Jewish militias started attempting murders here and there around in the villages. And actually, their process was to scare the villagers. So maybe at that time they were hearing about that, but they didn't think that they can leave until these massacres continued and escalated with bigger number of people being killed. So the pattern started from killing 10 villagers, and then bombing houses here and there, and then to bombing half a village, to killing 50 to 40 to 90 people until they had the massacre of Deir Yassin. I remember my grandmother told me after Deir Yassin, they started fearing for their lives. So I remember telling her, you shouldn't have left. Why did you flee? She hated the word flee. She said, we didn't flee. We thought that we are going back. So my grandmother went back to Gaza, to her father's house, thinking that she will go back to her husband's house in Yafa. So she left everything over there. They only got out with on a hurry with the clothes on their bodies. They didn't take anything from them. She doesn't have even her marriage photos. And one story that she told me, and it really aches my heart to the core until now. She said, and I'm sure a lot of the Palestinians have the same experience. She said, my aunt Naima, at that time she was 4 years old. She has a red head, and she said, I lost her on the way. I was in a state of a shock. I was running, and I was catching this one and that one. I was holding your father, who was only 1 year old. I was asking my husband to grab the other children. So she lost my aunt on the way. They were carried out on trunks. So she said, I just stopped the trunk and stopped on the middle of the road, asking people about my daughter. Have they seen this little girl? She's about 4 or 5. She has a red head, until she found her coming with other people who fled from the other side. And she told me on the way they were bombing around in front of the trunk behind. So the scene was so horrible at that time. Whenever she was telling about that story, she was crying. For me, I was just listening to a story. I couldn't feel that pain until I become a mother, and until I lived under the occupation. And when I was growing up, this kind of fear that I had for my children grew up, and it grew up with me. So every time I have the same fear from the aggressions, from the bombing, from the airstrikes we had, it just reminds me of how my grandmother felt this kind of fear for her children, how she wanted to flee. But there was one difference between the generation of our grandparents and our generation, is that we are standing here on this land. We are not leaving it. We are not fleeing from it, even if we die on our homes. And I'm sure that most of you have seen this recent aggression on Gaza about 2-3 days ago, when the airstrikes was killing people on their beds. The bombs were killing people in their beds while they are sleeping. So even if during the day, if we have these kinds of bombs, I'm not leaving my house. I'm not leaving my land. I had the chance actually of moving to the US, moving to New Zealand, and through having a scholarship over there and studying, but I didn't choose that. I chose to stay on the land of Palestine, finish my education over there, and come back to the land of Palestine because I'm not going to repeat the mistake of my grandparents. So I hope this summarizes the situation and how we feel. And if you have any question, I'm so happy to answer.
Thank you, Comrade Abir. You have painted a picture that is so chilling and brings to life the important demand and non-negotiability of the right of return. And I think that's something that I take away that you have conveyed to us so eloquently, and it's something that cannot be compromised on. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And it once again shows us Palestinian women suffer multiple oppressions and exploitations. They suffer as a community under occupation, suffering colonial settler Gestapo-type violence, while also battling patriarchy. In their everyday lives, Palestinian women, like many other women in settler, colonial, oppressive societies, face multiple forms of violence and discrimination, both in the public and private spheres. This has not deterred them in participating and playing a leading role in the liberation of women and their people. So I now call upon Tamam Al-Kharouf, who is 30 years old and is a social worker, lives in Jerusalem and with 3 children, and is the wife of Comrade Mustafa. Sister Tamam will share with us her lived experience as a wife of an activist and how his story has affected her and her family. Over to you, Sister Tamam.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Good.
I hope you all fine. I am Tamam. I'm 13 years old, and I am a mother for 3 children. My husband is a photojournalist. We are from Jerusalem. I'm a wife for the husband who didn't have any documentary. He have any identity. He has no papers. Okay, I will read it from my notes. Okay. Okay, as I said, I am a mother for 3 children and a husband who does not hold any documents that allow him to stay in Jerusalem. An illegal resident, how they call him in Israel, official circles. My husband was born in Algeria and came to Palestine since he was 12 years old. And since then, he has been in struggle to take his identity. He could not complete his education. He could not travel. He could not ride a car because he have no papers. And also he is now 35 years old. He was in the prison for 1 years old, for 1 year because of this situation. His family, his father, his mother, his sisters, my daughter, my son, also all of us have the ID, but he don't have one. He's okay. His family and his children did not give him a chance to stay with him, to stay with us for 1 year. He spent it in the prison. Till now, he have no any papers. He have no any legal things to stay in Jerusalem. till now he is just in a hard way to complete his learning, or to complete his work. He's not doing good anytime. This is my daughter. She's come now. Go. That's this thing is so hard for me as a mom. We can't go anywhere. We can't go from country to country. We are just in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the big present for us, me and my children, my husband. We can't go anywhere, just in Jerusalem. And this is so hard for me, so hard for my children. When I get the identify for my daughter and my son, it was so hard for me. It was so difficult because I have to give the father's papers to the Israeli circles. I have to give information of the father. I have to give information of from where he is. I have to give them all the information about him and his family. So it's so hard for me as a mom, so hard for me as a wife, and so hard for him as a man. He's not living his normal life. He's just in a big prison. Its name is Jerusalem. He can't move on. He can't move on anywhere, just Jerusalem. He's a journalist and photographer. He's so kind. He's um, um, so good in his work, so professional in his work. His name is Mustafa Al-Kharouf. I think you know his pictures. His picture speaks about him. This is our story, and till now, we are in a hard situation.
Thank you, Comrade Tamam. And we can hear your pain. We can hear what you're going through. And it is only through stories like yours can we actually understand what is going on. I think most people on this platform are activists. We've read what's going on, but it's only through the actual voice do we understand what it means to be a Palestinian in a land that is occupied, in a land that is riddled with racism, etc. So thank you so much. It's really, really appreciated, and I think everyone is feeling your pain.
Thank you.
We now go on to a video clip by a comrade from Masafa Riata. And just to give a bit of a background, in the 1980s, Israeli authorities designated a part of Masafa Riata in the southern Hebron Hills as Firing Zone 918, a closed military zone. Since this declaration, residents have been at risk of forced evictions, demolition, and forceful transfers. Some villages no longer exist after their homes were demolished. More than 20% of the West Bank has been designated as firing zones, affecting over 38 communities. And the impact of this on children can only be but a nightmare and can only be imagined by many of us who do not live under such conditions. On the 11th of May and the 1st of June 2022, dozens of Palestinians had their homes demolished. For some of them, the 1st of June was the third time to lose their homes in less than 1 year. On the 21st of June, a military training exercise began with the military placing targets to inhabited residential areas within Masafa Riata. Since military training began, there has been an increase in movement restrictions imposed on the community by Israeli forces, even on days when training is not taking place. We'll now listen to the video clip sent by Comrade Samiha Huraini from the village of Atuwani in the South Hebron Hills of Masaferiyata. There's still no sound, Noor.
South Hebron. سميحة هريني. Hi everyone, I'm Samiha Huraini. I'm a youth activist in the group of Youth of Sumud in the area of Masaferiyata, South Hebron Hills. I'm really happy to be with all of you today in this important and painful memory for all of us as Palestinians, which is our Nakba. I'm coming from the area of Masaferiyata, South Hebron Hills, that is in the south of the West Bank, which is declaring by the Israeli occupation as a military training, firing zone, and settlements area. Our Palestinian people are spread out in this area, living in caves and tents because of the oppression of the Israeli occupation that are not allowing them even to have a normal houses to live in. I'm a member of the group that called Youth of Sumud, mean Youth of Steadfastness. Our group was born in 2017 in one of these Palestinian villages in Masaferiyata that were evicted in the 90s, and our goal is to work and to restore this village and encourage the Palestinian people to come back and live in again. We take the responsibility to raise this awareness for our area that it's really in the nowhere in this world, and no one is knowing what is happening against us and against our human being in the area of Masaferiyata. We're trying to reach our Palestinian people, voices, and children and women and all people for all the international community to see what is happening in Masaferiyata and to stop the eviction order that the Israeli occupation court gave it for us as Palestinian people last May to evict 8 Palestinian villages from Masaferiyata. I'm here today to ask all of you, please do whatever you can to stop this court order to evict our Palestinian people from their own land, because they really have no other choice to go to. Our Palestinian people will be homeless refugees again. The Nakba that we are talking about it today, it's happening again for our people in Masaferiyata. As a young lady from Masaferiyata and a youth activist in Masaferiyata, I'm here today with you to talk to who still have an wake up humanity inside him, that we need your standing with us to stop this eviction order and the violation human being that's happening against us in Masaferiyata. Again, I want really to thank you so much for your standing with us in this important day, and we need you to stop another Nakba that's going to happen against us and our people in Masaferiyata. Thank you so much.
I think, comrades, we've all heard this plea loud and clear, and I hope that very soon we are able to get together and discuss a plan as per the demand made by Comrade Samiha. So moving on, today Palestinian women are active in resisting every sphere of struggle in the cultural terrain environment, workers' rights as well as the rights of women. As solidarity movements, we have to appreciate this intellectual and practical organizing forms and traditions established by Palestinians under occupation and those exiled. This year, many around the world have witnessed Israel's program by fascist Israeli militias against Palestinians in Huwara, near Nablus in the occupied Palestinian territory. We have heard the televised interview of the senior Israeli government minister Bezalel Smotrich calling for Huwara to be erased And later, in a public meeting in France, he said, there is no such thing as a Palestinian nation. There is no Palestinian history. There is no Palestinian language. This has given the right-wing factions the impunity to continue attacks on a daily basis in Jenin, Nablus, Jerusalem, and most of occupied Palestine. And the fact that all of us are here today, listening to the voices of comrades, of sisters, of women who play an active role in the resistance movement, we know too well that Palestine is here to stay. So we now call upon Comrade Farhan Farah, who works at the Ilya Jerusalem Association in the Public Relations Association and an activist stationed in Al-Aqsa. She will share with us her experience as a mother, a woman, and an activist. I think her sister is going to be translating. Comrade Shadi, handing over to you. You can unmute. There we go. We see you, but you're still muted. Just you're still muted. Shadi, you're going to have to unmute first. No, we can't hear you. Noor, can you perhaps unmute from your side or not?
Unfortunately not. I have sent.
There we go.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay.
This is Maisa Daragma, M. Shadi sister. I'm going to transfer her. She can start now.
Okay, great.
نتحدث اليوم عن المرأة الفلسطينية وما تعرضت له منذ عام 1948. We're going to talk about the Palestinian woman today. Palestinian women exposed for several forms of violence from the Nakba till this time. وما زالت مستمرة هذه النكبة وما زالت المرأة الفلسطينية تتعرض للعنف من قبل الاحتلال الصهيوني. We still have the Nakba till this day. We still have a civil violence to the Palestinian woman for a couple things in our life. وأنا مثال على هذا العنف الذي تعرضت له عندما اعتقل الاحتلال ابني شادي وكان عمره 12 عاما. I'm a mother of a child who got arrested from Israeli when he was 12 years old. كثيرا ما تعرضت للمنع من زيارة شادي. I'm going to talk about my experience. وهناك العديد من الأمهات ما زالت تعاني من اعتقال أطفالهن وبناتهن. There's a lot of women there suffering from Israeli arrested their child. وهذه المعاناة أيضا تمتد إلى البيت حيث أن الأطفال يعانون من وضع نفسي سيء. الأطفال المعتقلين الأسيرات حيث أنهم يعانون من عدم النوم والوحدة. We still struggling. We still have a lot of kids are in jail, and Israeli people still they're like they're little, they're 12 years old and under. They can't sleep and they يعني حتى بعد تحرر الأطفال من الأسر فإنهم يعانون من مشاكل عديدة. Even when they let him go, they still about her son Shadi, he still like has a lot of issue. صعوبة في التعليم، صعوبة في الاندماج في المجتمع وممارسة حياة طبيعية. He can't learn, he can't live his normal life like other kids. والأطفال بحاجة إلى يد المساعدة من أجل الخروج من هذه المشاكل التي يعانون منها بعد الاعتقال. The kids they still need help from what they had in the jail, what they how they treat them. لكن احنا بنقول انه يجب على المرأة الفلسطينية ان تجابه هذا الاحتلال بالوعي we said that we can just still fight for freedom and like living our normal life like other people. والتوجه إلى المحاكم الدولية من أجل رفع قضايا على هذا الاحتلال الذي يعتقل الأطفال. And we can go fight and talk about our experience to the whole world and let them know how we live. And وما زال هناك العديد من الأطفال داخل السجون وهناك العديد من الأسيرات داخل السجون. And still there's a lot of kids in jail. They can get out and live their life. واليوم ندعو العالم أجمع من أجل الوقوف إلى قضية الأطفال الأسرى خاصة. Today we call all the world so they can help those kids to be out, to be freedom. ومن هنا أشكر المؤسسات في جنوب أفريقيا وفي كل العالم من يقفون إلى جانبنا دائما. Today I'm thanking everyone who help us, who talk about us and talk about our problems. وأقول أنه يجب على كل امرأة فلسطينية أن ترفع صوتها عاليا عندما يعتقل الاحتلال طفلها. And I'm saying that we should all women talk about their experience, about their freedom. شكرا لكم لاستماعكم. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shadi. I think most people here know that Shadi's son was one of the youngest persons who was imprisoned, and he is now released. But it's like Shadi has said, the psychological impact of imprisonment on little children is just enormous. They can never get out of it. He was in jail for many years, and now for him to adjust to life, whether it is schooling, whether it is in his home, whether it is with his friends, it just is very difficult. And a mother carries this pain. So Shadi, we are with you. We feel your pain, and we also applaud you with all the work you are doing as an activist and in the resistance movement. So you really are an inspiration to all of us. Thank you so much. Like Palestinian men and children, women are flagrantly maimed, incarcerated, and killed. So this month also marks the first anniversary of the assassination of Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was assassinated at the hands of an IDF sniper with impunity. Many others have been subjected to imprisonment, whilst dozens are held without trial or charge, forbidding them to receive visits from their families. A few are in administrative detention. This is the Israeli apartheid government's illegal action, which, as we all know and are mourning Kader Adnan, who protested over and laid his life on the line for. These illegal and unjust actions are in violation of the 4th Geneva Convention, and most are targeted with specific assaults on the basis of gender-based violence, such as torture, beatings, insults, threats, gangly body searches, and sexual harassment. According to the Organization for Palestinian Political Prisoners, Adamir, around 10,000 women have been arrested or detained in the last 50 years. We now call upon Sahar Francis, which is, I think she's known to most of the people on this platform. She's a Palestinian human rights lawyer, has been the director of Ramallah-based organization Adamir Prisoner Support and Human Rights Association since 2006. Adamir is one of the designated 6 organizations that has been labeled as terrorist. Comrade Sahar has more than 20 years of experience in international human rights law and will share with us her experience working in this important space. Over to you, Comrade Sahar Francis.
Good evening.
Evening.
Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting me to take part in this important gathering tonight. It's my honor to be sharing my experience, as you just put it, as a human rights lawyer that was working specifically with prisoners over the last 20 years. And it's always warming to hear Imshadi that she's still powerful, still insisting to continue her struggle and her support for the cause of the Palestinian women and especially the child prisoners out of her personal experience. As you just mentioned, currently there's around 5,000 prisoners in total, out of them 155 children and 32 women imprisoned, and around 1,000 under administrative detention without any trial or charge. The imprisonment experience is a very harsh, and the occupation, actually the colonialist state, since the first moment of the creation back after Nakba in 1948, were using the imprisonment as the main tool to maintain the oppression against the whole Palestinian society. And you can just imagine how women were suffering under the imprisonment, even if they were not themselves the prisoners, because if we're talking about 5,000 prisoners, this means more than 5,000 women currently are affected, the mothers, the sisters, the wives of these prisoners, that they would end up harassed, ill-treated, like facing lots of torture, ill-treatment, degrading treatment that can amount to sexual harassment in the process of the visitation to the prisons or the military court sessions and so on. Actually, there's lots of details to be discussed about the experience of the Palestinian female prisoners or the family members of the political prisoners, but allow me to highlight the case of Khadr Adnan, the martyr Khadr Adnan, Ahmad Manasra, and Walid Daqqa. As you mentioned, Khadr, last week, after 87 days of hunger strike, and this is not the first time, this is his sixth time under hunger strike, and he lost his life this time because of the ignorance of the prison system and the military court system and the Israeli High Court, that they rejected the demands to transfer him to a normal hospital after he was reaching such a dangerous, deteriorating health situation. While all these 87 days, the Israeli prison service were not allowing his wife, Randa, and his 9 children to visit him under his hunger strike. And even when he reached such a very critical situation, they were aware that he's struggling in the last days, and still they didn't allow his wife and the family to visit him. So you can imagine what conditions and what's the experience that Randa and her children get through in all these 12 years that Khadr were rearrested. All, like every couple of months, he was subjected for administrative detention or for a trial. At least 9 times he was rearrested. Ahmad Manasra, the boy who was arrested when he was not even 14, and he was sentenced for 9 years. He was tortured, he was isolated in solitary confinement, and since 2 years, he is punished in solitary confinement because the prison system claimed that he tried to commit suicide And you can imagine what's the suffer of his mother, his father, that they cannot help him. They cannot get him out of the prison and treat him and take care of him, even with his difficult situation. He's still facing the solitary confinement punishment. Walid Daqqa, another like Palestinian, very old Palestinian detainee that he already spent more than 37 years inside the prisons. Walid today suffers from a very serious cancer situation. 2 months ago, he was hospitalized with a serious lung infection, and his wife was just allowed to visit him with their daughter that she was born after a very long legal struggle. At the end, Walid and his wife were forced to smuggle sperm in order to have this child, and they were allowed just to visit him after more than 1 month in a very serious health situation, hospitalized in the civil hospital. And they still insist not to release Walid because after finishing his previous sentence of 37 years, he was supposed to be released last March, but they sentenced him for another case of entering cell phones illegally to inside the prison for another 2 years, and now they refuse to release him because they consider him a security threat, a terrorist detainee, and they insist to keep him till the last day, even with his health conditions. So his wife is so worried, and she initiated a campaign to release her husband. These three cases can reflect the hundreds of thousands of family members, especially the women, that they face this horrible experience. Mothers, detainees, mothers of children were suffering, being imprisoned for long period without being allowed to have any physical contact with their children in the time of the family visits for 40 minutes each month. Some women lost their children while they were in prison, or their family, one of their family members, the father or the mother, and they wouldn't be allowed. The Palestinian female detainees are held in Damoun currently. This is a prison inside Israel in the north, in very bad conditions, whether on the level of the healthcare, the lack of healthcare, whether on the restrictions, the daily restrictions that they face, the daily punishments they face, the torture under interrogation, the strip search that can amount to sexual assault and sexual harassment, the failure of the prison system to offer them the basic rights of as detainees to be able to continue their education or to receive normally books and newsletters and so on. So as all the other Palestinian prisoners actually, but it would be much more difficult for the woman because the prison system don't take care, don't offer any sensibility for the needs, the special needs of a woman being detained, especially those that they are sentenced for long years in the Israeli prisons. I will stop here. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Comrade Adabir, Sahar. I think what the work you're doing is just excellent, and it brings forth to us the importance for the solidarity movement to focus on the campaign and join hands and connect the dots with organizations like Adamir to free all political prisoners. It is a campaign that requires all our support. The international solidarity movement needs to intensify. We need to up our game when it comes to this campaign. And I'm hoping that many people on this platform would raise their hands to join this campaign so that we can mobilize, we can organize, and we can raise the issues, because the people in the political prisons are not just numbers or statistics, but are people. And many of us that are not in Palestine do not know the names, do not know for how long they've been in prison. In South Africa, we knew the people who were resistance fighters, who were stalwarts and were in prison. We knew their names. We communicated this to the rest of the world. And I think the same thing needs to happen. We need to start focusing on this campaign. So thank you so much, Comrade Sahar. I think you brought to the fore the importance for South Africa and for the rest of Africa to start focusing on this campaign. So with that, we also know that Israel has established a colonial project whose criminality and ethnic cleansing have increasingly been recognized by the international civil society organizations. Many have correctly labeled the regime as racist and sexist, reminiscent of apartheid. We have also been witness to what has been taking place in Al-Aqsa this year and every year for the past 75 years, where Palestinian worshippers were not only barred from the Al-Aqsa compound, but were beaten, charged, and attacked while worshipping. We have also witnessed Palestinian Christians being barred from places of worship during the religious periods. In these extremely right-wing secular attacks supported by the army, many young people are injured and imprisoned. So I just want to check with Salam Media, who is here. We have Abir Ahmed Sayadi, who is in South Africa right now. She's a well-known archaeologist and is an expert on Al-Aqsa Mosque. Has she been able to join us yet? Let me just check if she is here. If not, we...
At the moment, I'm just going to confirm with Ponty when she'll be able to join.
Yeah, I think she's because she's in South Africa, she's just answering, I think, questions on another meeting at the moment. But in the meantime, if it's okay with Comrade Roshan, if she is on, to share with us the proposed apartheid conference. Comrade Roshan? Comrade Roshan, you are on mute. Comrade Roshan? Don't know, she can't hear us. Or maybe she has load shedding, I'm not sure. I'm just
now Shadi asking question. She said, "What you do for kids like this?" I mean,
okay. I don't know if we have anyone on the panel who want to respond to Shadi in the meantime, while we just try and communicate to with Sister Abir and Comrade Roshan. Does anyone here? I see we have some people from here who are working with children, like Comrade Yusuf, Comrade Salim. Do you want to respond to Shadi's question around children who have been imprisoned and are suffering from a psychological perspective? Or even Comrade Sahar from Abir, who has got some of this experience?
she's waiting for the answer. Is anyone can answer her question?
Let's see, can comrades raise their hands?
Okay, thank you.
Comrade Sahar, perhaps you would like to go just to respond to that from your experience working within the space of prisoners.
Yes, thank you. I think maybe the message from Shadi is more about the international solidarity, because I'm sure she's fully aware about the work of the local organizations as a Damir, that we are very limited in the legal work, for example, that we are able to do in front of the military courts or the Israeli courts. We all know that this is an apartheid system, and the courts are part of this system, and actually they are responsible and complicit with these crimes committed against the children. And as organizations, in the case of Shadi at that time, as well in the case of Ahmad Manasra today, we try to bring these cases in front of the international UN different groups like the Special Rapporteur on Palestine and other human rights, Save the Children, UNICEF, all the different groups. Unfortunately, we all know that without the political will, without really clear actions and decisions from the UN or the states, Israel is not respecting international law, it's not respecting the obligations according to these treaties. And this is why we need the mobilization of the people. It's more powerful, I think, if we joint effort in such campaigns, whether in social media or in media in general, in all of the different countries, in South Africa and in other countries, via putting pressure directly on the Israeli side, maybe we can make difference. And this is why for this session, for me, it's very important. It's raising awareness for the people, for your own communities in South Africa, that they are able to communicate and network around the issues of the child Palestinian prisoners or the women in detention or the administrative detainees or other cases.
So, I mean, I'll open it up to anybody else who want to respond, but it is definitely a campaign that we have to unpack. We have to look at how we can focus on it. I think for the past few years, we've had small events that just did not have the momentum it deserves. So I think it's about time we start focusing on prisoner campaigns, especially on children and on women. So is there anybody who would like to respond to this for now? Okay, so I think, Shadi, it is something that both the BDS Coalition as well as the Palestine Solidarity Alliance do feel and the need to put effort, energy on this campaign. So it is something that we will take out of this this meeting today and start working on this campaign together with a lot of the voices that we've heard today. So if I would leave that there and just confirm, I don't know if Comrade Roshan is unmuting herself, but I would just want to say that we have heard from some of the most prominent voices from Palestine. We need to begin to ask ourselves, have we in our activism included a justice and gender perspective in our work, in seeking to unite with other struggles, workers, women, environment, and so on? Have we affirmed the participation and leadership of women in our organizations? And I think this is an important question. Some of us who started planning for the session realized the importance of gender and the issues we face as women, as mothers, as activists, and how we can bring this to the fore. So in going forward, we would like to connect the dots between what women are experiencing in Africa under colonialism, under with regards to poverty, with regards to healthcare, and how we connect this to women in not only women but to the resistance movement in Palestine. So that was one of the discussions we've had, and we said going forward we need to start building and ensuring that this is an important part of our solidarity work. I saw Comrade Yusuf had his hand up. Comrade Yusuf, do you want to go?
Yeah, just very briefly, I think that for us in South Africa, the war on Palestinian children is maybe a special project that we need to embark upon. firstly. Secondly, we do have links with providing psychological support. Some psychologists do go there to parts of Palestine, and it's also a situation where one doesn't want to jeopardize the practical support that we provide, and so we need to think of how we are going to increase and expand around that. But there are several other things. So that's one part. But I do think that the child prisoners, the trauma, engaging societies here in South Africa, child-based societies, professional societies, and then there's some special cases, the detention of children and children with disabilities, how the Israeli regime treats it. And I think a special case perhaps can be made, a very special project and case around Ahmed Mansara, almost to amplify that into a global case. I think when one focuses on an individual, it has greater traction. So those are some of the suggestions that I have, Firoza. Thank you.
I think that's a great suggestion. Absolutely. I think, and maybe once again, Comrade Sahar can come in here if we focus together with Aramir on one child as a start and just build that case. And I think Comrade Yusuf is making a really great point. It could be a way forward.
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned, there is a campaign for the release of Ahmed Manasra that could be the initiative. And I would suggest that definitely you should be contacting Defense for Children International, the local Palestinian organization, following specifically the arrest and detention of the Palestinian children. But of course, in Al-Damir, we would be very keen in collaborating, in feeding information, giving the details about the children, putting in connection between you, the activists, and the families, if needed, or other organizations that are following the cases. And the psychological support is definitely very important. And actually, the Save the Children, DCI, YMCA,
Brian,
there is some.
How do you get sound here? Okay, unmute.
Sorry?
It's fine. You can continue.
I think in the specific social support, you also should be in contact with the local organizations that they are involved in the issue of offering such support after the release. Because unfortunately, while they are in detention, we are not able to offer any psychological social support because the Israeli prison system refuses to allow Palestinian psychologists or social workers to normally implement visits for these kids inside the prison, which makes it a very harsh experience because, as I said, if they are punished for solitary confinement, they would be totally affected on the mental, psychological level. They would be left alone. Any, like the harsh treatment in interrogation, the torture, the degrading treatment is seriously affecting the Palestinian children because they are basically left alone in the prisons without much social psychological support. And if we compare it with the conditions of the Israeli child prisoners, there is a huge discrimination when it comes for the rehabilitation programs and the social psychological support that they offer their own kids that they are imprisoned.
Thank you. I think those are really important points, and it is something we as the BDS coalition need to definitely focus on. So we will have more discussions on this point and see how we can communicate with yourself and take this forward. So thank you so much for that. I see Sister Abir Sayadi has just joined us. Comrade Abir Sayadi, I've introduced you without you being on our platform, but welcome. Thank you for making the time to join us. I just will want an input from Comrade Abir Sayadi quickly. She is, as I mentioned previously, an archaeologist, is visiting South Africa and has deep insights with regards to Al-Aqsa. So Comrade Abir, without wasting much more time, we look forward to hearing from you.
I see that Comrade Abir has left.
Dropped off again. Yeah, I think they're having some problems. Comrade Umshadi, you were going to say something?
Yeah, she said she wanted to thank everyone who support Palestinian children in South Africa and offering all this help for Palestinian women and children.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's, you don't have to say thank you. It is our duty, and it's something we have to focus on, Shadi. Definitely. So let's keep in touch and let's definitely focus on that. Abir is supposed to be here because I'm getting messages to say that she's on, but I don't see her on. The Sila Media just want to come on and let us know if she's on.
She said yes, she will be on. Thank you, Fairuza. Thank you, everyone.
Abir Zayadi, are you on?
Yeah.
Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Fairuza.
No, it's Comrade Abir is not in the meeting. They're having some connection issues, so I don't think they'll be able to join us.
Oh, okay. I'm getting quite confused. All right. So I think that we've heard some voices from really prominent activists in Palestine. And it's something that we need to continue. We need to continue working on with the people we've engaging with. We need to start looking at some of the issues that have been raised and how we can take this further. We should not just keep this as a talk shop or have Zoom meetings without clear objectives, without having campaigns that we can take forward to intensify this and build on the solidarity movement. So I don't know if there's anybody from the coalition or from any of the Palestine solidarity organizations that have anything to say or want to add. Or any of the Palestinian activists who are with us, like Badi. I see quite a few people here. Anybody want to just come in here? We've still got a few minutes.
So,
you can go, Comrade Yusuf.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and I think immediately, and I hope I'm not off track. I mean, we've received notification that about the impending flag march, so-called flag march, and
Yes.
the impact of that. If you could just have some brief idea from the ground, what are the issues and perhaps what are the preemptive things that we can embark upon here? I think it's in this week as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Yusuf. So we have heard that the right-wing settler colonialists are planning a flag march on the 19th. And in that process are also planning to invade Al-Aqsa. We don't know if this is true, but we've heard that they have asked for permission. So I think Comrade Yusuf is asking from people on the ground if you have information on this, and if we can highlight the issues. Highlight this, so perhaps be more be preemptive around what may happen. So I don't know if Shadi or Comrade Abir Barakat or anybody, Comrade Sahar, if you have information. Bidi, maybe you have information on this.
I think it's better if someone from Al-Quds can tell us, because we in Gaza cannot actually imagine. We only see that on the news, but we know how the Israelis trying to be in this March of Flags, they try to be provocative to the Palestinians and Muslims in this march. They celebrate the so-called establishment of the State of Israel on the Palestinian ground, on the blood of the Palestinians. And in this march, they actually walk through the old town of Al-Quds into the Islamic neighborhoods, etc. And they try to tease the Palestinians, do provocative actions, do even curse the Muslims, curse the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the sanctities of the Muslims and the Christians as well, because this is not only happening against the Muslims. So this is what I see in the media. This is what I know from the media. But I hope that someone from Al-Quds can tell us about what actually happens on the ground.
Can we hear from anyone who is based in Jerusalem who has more information on this? If not, and if you do manage to find out in the course of today, tomorrow, if you could just send us some information, and perhaps we can have a discussion on this side and see how we can perhaps respond right to the media and make some kind of a noise around this. And I don't know if it will make any difference, but at least we can raise it to some level. Let me just, so I don't know if there's anything from anyone else. I just want to check if, no, I haven't yet heard from her. So I think this has been really a great meeting. We need to, if people still want to be part of this, want to continue making sure that we work on gender issues, gender-based violence, connect with women across the continent, etc. Please send your or email myself or Noor. And we can, we have started a group already. We can add you to this group and start working a bit more in a focused manner. So with that, I would like to say all the panelists, thank you so much for everyone who is attending, who has attended today. And we just want to say that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free of Zionism, apartheid, imperialism, occupation, and colonialism. So with that, it would be great if everyone can show their faces and we can just wave at each other and give a high salute. Aware to. And we have started using the phrase saying Amandla Intifada, so that we connecting between our countries as well.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks
you, everyone.
for having us. Thanks for being the voice for the voiceless. God bless you.
No, like I said to Shadi, no, you don't have to thank us. It is our duty. It is something that as activists, as Palestine Solidarity organizations, as being part of the BDS, it's something that we will continue doing until all of Palestine is free.
Somebody says no.
Okay, so with that, thank you so much, everyone. We will continue sharing the plans of actions we have on our side. And from your side, please continue sending us all information you may have about what is happening on the ground so that we can mobilize from the side as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.